The teacher to-do list is never ending. But what if I told you there are ways to actually get more done during the day? In today's video, I am sharing 10 time management tips that are sure to have you crossing more off your to-do list. If you're new here, I'm Rachel Vincent, and I share tips on how to run an effective and efficient classroom so that you can get all the things done and still have time to teach. There are so many things we have to do as teachers. So the first time management tip is to pick a top 3 or top 5 items that you know have to get done that day. Personally, I like to have a top 3 that I do for each day of the week. So I know that every Monday, my top 3 are to get my students' graded papers ready to go home for that day, to file them and put them in their folders because they have Monday folders, to send out our weekly parent email, and to grade papers. Grading papers is actually on almost every day of the week for me because I do not enjoy saving it for one time period. I like to do a little bit each day because it's just easier for me that way. That's a personal preference. I know some teachers like to save it all and power through it, but again, that's my third one. So I know that every Monday, those are my top 3 things I have to do. And then when I've got those 3 things finished, then I can work on other tasks and other items on my to-do list. The second tip I have for you is something called Eat the Frog. Now it sounds really weird and really gross, but the basic concept is to do the hardest thing first. Just go ahead and get it done. Nobody wants to really eat a frog. I don't honestly know where that phrase comes from, and I'm sure I could look it up and find out. But to me, what it means is do the thing you don't want to do or the thing that will be the hardest to do first and get it out of the way. So for me, that always comes around report card time. I just don't enjoy writing report card comments. I feel like I communicate with parents so much that I've already told them how their child's doing. They already know. And so I feel just very silly and redundant when it comes to report cards. So I just don't enjoy doing it. So I make sure when my grades are finalized and everything's done, like I just do it. I get it done with, so I don't have to worry about it and I'm not waiting till the last minute to do it. I just get it out of the way. Tip number 3 is the 5-minute rule. And this kind of goes with tip 2, whereas if there is a task that you don't want to do or you're dreading doing, or oftentimes a task that I know is just gonna take a long time, I implement the 5-minute rule. And I tell myself, all right, I'm gonna set a timer. I'm going to do it for 5 minutes and then I can stop. And often this tends to be like if it's grading writing, because to me that is the worst thing to grade. Or if it's, again, those report card comments, those things, just go for 5 minutes and then you give yourself permission to stop after those 5 minutes. And there are times when I have stopped, I'm like, okay, I'm not in the mindset to do this right now. But oftentimes when that timer goes off, I'm already in the flow of doing it, that I just continue doing it and I knock out whatever it is that I was dreading. And setting timers is really a great hack, and that is why it is tip number 4. So there are times when, I don't know about you, but I have like 15 minutes left of my planning period and I need to go get my students, but I have like sort of things that I know like will take longer than 15 minutes, or I'm not sure how long it will take. And I want to make sure, like maybe I still need to stop by the restroom or stop by my box to pick up things before I go get my students. So I'll set a timer for 10 minutes and say, okay, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna grade 10 minutes, and then I'll go get my students. I'm just gonna set that timer and work on whatever I can get done in 10 minutes before I have to go pick my students up. So it's just a way of, normally when you have that sort of time period where you have a short amount of time, you want to get stuff done, but you know things are going to take longer, and then you end up just doing things you don't need to be doing, like rearranging or reorganizing, things like that are not on your to-do list that you're just like, well, I'll just do this in the meantime. But setting a timer allows you to tackle things on your to-do list in a short amount of time without running over or forgetting to go get your students, or still leaving your time to go to the bathroom and do those things. Tip number 5 is something that honestly doesn't really affect me at school because I don't tend to ever get on my phone at school, but it does when I'm working on something at home. And so if you are someone who does it at school, or even if you're working at home, putting your phone away, putting it on do not disturb so that you are not distracted by your phone. It is so crazy how we can say, I'm just gonna look on social media or whatever, check my messages for just 5 minutes, and the next thing you know, 30 minutes has gone by. And it's crazy how that happens, and I don't know why I'm always surprised, but I am. So putting your phone on do not disturb or putting it away so that you can get the tasks on your to-do list done that day. And if you want to schedule that last 5 minute, use the timers, whatever you need to do, to allow yourself to have it, but not let it control your time so that you are getting more done on your list. So tip number 6, actually I got from the whole business world and running my TPT business and YouTube. I got this idea for that, and then I started implementing it into my classroom, and it works really well there. And that is something called tiny tasks. Like I said earlier, there are often times when you have these small chunks of time where you know some of the things on your to-do list would take too much time to fit in that time. So let's say, again, you have 10 minutes before your planning period is over. If you have a list of tiny tasks that you could work on during that time, you are getting more done. Like, I know one thing for me at school is homeroom teachers, we are responsible for making sure we upload pictures that we have taken in our classroom and of our students into a folder on our school Google Drive so that they can be put into the yearbook. And so often I take the pictures on my phone and I don't always email them to myself or upload them to the folder. So that is one of my tiny tasks that is on my list. So if I have this awkward chunk of time or just a few minutes, I can upload a few pictures, email myself a few pictures. It doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of mental capacity. And I know I need to get it done, but it works well to fit in this tiny little amount of time. Another tiny task that I have is just clearing out my email inbox. I go through and delete emails I don't need or sort emails into folders and kind of clean that up. Another tiny task is to clean up my Google Drive, put files and things into folders where they belong, because oftentimes we're doing things on the fly, that making copies and doing all that stuff, that it doesn't always get put in the proper place. So I can use that 10-15 minutes to kind of reorganize my Google Drive. Tip number 7 also came from my TPT business, and that is to use templates. Instead of recreating the same things over and over again, use a template that allows you just to plug in the information and use it the same way. So for class newsletters, I use the same format every month, just I have changed up the information. For my parent weekly emails, I use the same format every week. I just change the information. And so it actually saves me time. Instead of having to recreate everything every month or every Monday, I just plug in the new information and send it out. Tip number 8 is to batch your work. Batching is also another concept that I got from the whole business TPT world. Our brains actually don't function as well multitasking, where we are switching from different task to different task. We're checking an email, we're grading some papers, we're writing a lesson plan. Our brains actually work better when we do it all at once. So I, especially with lesson planning, will batch my work. I know that every Tuesday I am going to sit down and I'm going to work on the next week's plans. I am not going to be making copies. I am not going to be grading papers. I'm just going to be planning out my lessons. So then the next day, I can gather all my materials and head to the copy machine. So I'm only visiting the copy machine once a week, maybe twice if I forget something, because we all know that happens. But it is just a way to, you actually get more done when you batch, because your brain can stay focused on that one thing. So you're thinking about your lesson plans one time as you're planning them. And then you're thinking about what materials I need to gather or make or create. And then you're thinking about what do I need to copy, how many of each, what kinds of copies, colored paper, white paper. So your brain is just staying on that one task instead of flipping to all these different tasks. Now, the one thing, like I said earlier, that I personally don't batch is grading. The idea of having to sit for an hour and grade papers, that's just not something I want to do. So I actually grade a little bit each day. I'll grade, typically it's 1 or 2 assignments each day so I can stay on top of it. But I do not actually batch grading, but what I do batch when it comes to grades is putting them in the grade book. So I actually record them down on sort of this checklist that I have that helps me keep track of missing work. And then typically on Fridays, I will then go and put all the grades in our online grade book. Tip number 9 and 10 are kind of closely related because it really has to do with your planning time and coworkers. So often we get that 1 or 2 times a day that we get to socialize with adults, and sometimes that is all we can really do that day. And I have had days where I got nothing done during my planning because I spent the time socializing. And I try to make sure when those times happen, I am intentionally choosing those times, and it's not just because I'm getting swept up in chatting. So one of the ways to kind of combat that, because my classroom is really close to 3 other coworkers of mine. So when one goes across the hall to talk to the other one, I can hear their conversation and then I get swept up into that. And now I'm listening or get up and walk over there. I'll just put some headphones on so that I can focus on the task I need to get done. And that's tip number 9, is to use headphones if you need to do that. And I know it might come across as being antisocial, but I promise if you tell your coworkers, hey guys, I really need to get this done so I can leave on time or so that I don't have to work at night, your coworkers will understand, because 9 times out of 10, they should be working too and have so many things they want to do that they will understand. And that leads into tip number 10, which is close your door during your planning. I don't do this all the time, but there are times when I need to let my coworkers know that right now I'm off limits. Don't come ask me a question. I have work I need to get done. Again, if you feel you need to have a conversation with your coworkers and say, hey guys, when my doors close, I really need to focus on the task at hand, your coworkers will understand, because they're teachers too, and nobody understands teaching like another teacher. So don't feel worried about offending your coworkers. Just tell them, I have some work that I've got to get done and I don't need any distractions. And if for some reason you have a coworker that doesn't seem to understand why, well, the best tip I have for that is when you close your door, turn off your lights and make sure you're not in the window of your door. They will think you're not in there, they'll think you're in some meeting, and you can get your work done. What time management hack are you gonna try this week? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video and this type of content, make sure you have clicked the subscribe button. I love sharing tips and ideas on how to make your life as a teacher more efficient.